So we have Judie Matthews here today with Bringing Back Bath. She is the Special Collections Librarian for the Metropolitan Library System. So let's give her a big round of applause to get her going.
Thank you so much, everyone. I am not the only special collections librarian. I'm one of many. And so there's a whole team behind us trying to make Oklahoma City history more impactful and meaningful and to grow our collection of things. So small change. Thank you so much. Really happy to be here today. This is the information that was in there, and you can read over it again. A little bit about what I'm doing here and what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm a librarian, I'm an archivist, I'm a public historian. And in that role, the most important thing to me and what I'm trying to do as a librarian is to make primary sources relevant, accessible, contextualized, and to make people curious about what they're seeing next. So a lot of what I'm talking about today, because this is a history symposium and not a web development symposium, is talking about my wheelhouse, which are the primary sources. This is a secondary source that we've created, something based on the history, but embedded within it are all of the primary sources, and those can be pulled out and reviewed. So the primary sources are behind it all the time to engage people in the primary source that's most meaningful, most interesting, most relevant to them all the time. So this model that we've created, and we'll look at it very soon, both on the screen, and I have two headsets here if you'd like to put it on and try it, is inspired by this that was created by the New York Times in 2021, based on a huge amount of material that was created for the Tulsa Race Massacre centennial. Has anybody seen this particular thing? So this is so cool. So this scrolls through. It's HTML5, and you scroll through it, and the model that's rendered here, these architectural models, it goes throughout the city, and if there is a primary source photograph, it gets embedded over it. So it sort of shows you the real vision, and this is based on the rest of primary sources. If you scroll down all the way, it'll say how we built this, and it goes through all the primary sources that they use, and then a funny little paragraph that says we created a computer program using machine learning, and that's all they said about that. So all the primary sources were really obvious, and the same things that we used for this, and the nuts and bolts of how they did the back end are still a mystery to me, but I'll talk about the nuts and bolts of what we tried to do here. So I'm an Oklahoman, but a central Oklahoman more than anything. And while I think talking about stories from Tulsa are fantastic and we should be promoting all of them, I care deeply about Oklahoma City history and talking about what's here, not just because it's a bigger city, there's more going on, but because I think about the needs of Oklahoma Cityans and people that live in Oklahoma County. And I want to make Oklahoma history relevant to people, and talking about the history that you are driving through every day, living with every day, and living with the effects of is always going to be more meaningful than something that happened in a town that maybe you have never gone to, no matter if you share the same state name. I'm trying to think about what people would be relevant today, and I'm always trying to think about what stories are not being told in Oklahoma City history. So some of the things that inspired this were, besides that model for Tulsa, is we've had a long project since maybe 2018 on Black space oral history. We're working with outside groups that are recording oral history, and we're the repository for them. So I've been listening to a ton of those, hearing what's going on, and a lot of those are community initiatives, people that wanted to record things, and some of them are embedded in the model. In 2021, we had the 100th anniversary of the Dunbar Library in Oklahoma City. The Oklahoma City libraries were segregated in 1921 in the same month of the Tulsa Race Massacre. We celebrated the 100th anniversary of that, and we'll talk about the Dunbar Library in context of the model too. I think there's an ongoing interest in Oklahoma City about urban renewal, period. Why did this happen? People are aghast now at seeing what urban renewal took away, primarily when they talk about it, from downtown Oklahoma City. So walking through that. Okay, I think this link is going to work. This is a YouTube link. I hope there's not an ad. Oh boy. But this is a version of our model. Okay. I think let's just skip this, and we can look at that or look at it in the model, in the VR headset, in the thing. I don't know why. I can't. It's not even showing regular YouTube. It's really bizarre. Okay. We'll just get back to where we could be with this. All right. Okay. So how do we start doing this? How do we call the primary sources together? How do we figure out how to make a VR model? So one thing about making a VR building to walk into, you can make a VR presentation of something that exists today. You can make a VR model of the entire History Center. You just get a bunch of 360 cameras, take all the images, knit them all together, and it's accurate because we have actual photography taken today. You can make a VR experience of a fantasy world for a video game, and you'll also get it 100% right because it doesn't exist, and there's no accuracy that you have to meet at all. But if you want to create a VR model of something that did exist, that people have living memory of, that's been torn down or otherwise destroyed, it takes much more work, and it's much harder to get accuracy. I've been interested in a long time as a librarian and public historian. People are always asking, do you have a photo of this place? Do you have a photo of my house? Do you have a photo of this thing at this time? And for Northwest Oklahoma City, that's really easy. Not just because there are more photos of that place, but because they receive more metadata and librarianship behind them from the beginning. They're accurately listed. It'll say it's in this neighborhood at this cross street at this time. That kind of credence has not been given to photos of Northeast Oklahoma City or really any other part of town. So I have been actively searching out photos that we can pin down to a location and plotting them on this map. I have every historian in Oklahoma City working on this with me. People routinely send me photos and say it's here. We are working on this and updating this all the time. We just added this photo. This is from the late 1950s, early 1960s that shows Northeast 4th. The Northeast side was a predominantly African-American community at this time as well. And all of this housing has been destroyed while many things on the other side of the railroad tracks still exist. We just added this photo looking northwest, maybe from about Lincoln and Reno, which may not seem to show you everything that might be interesting about Northeast Oklahoma City. But when we zoom in, we can see Calvary and Avery AME here in the context of how they might have looked in a way that nobody has seen before. You don't think about what these buildings looked like 50, 60 years ago before some of them were taken down for a variety of reasons. So the map is really helpful. If you're not familiar with African American history in Oklahoma City, the Northeast side often had about 90% of the African American population in 1940. That's often cited as a statistic. And it was Northeast H that was the primary boundary for the North End. So here's Deep Deuce over here, and here's a much more residential area of town. Looking for the model, we looked for areas of density in photographs that we would have more accurate representation, and thought that this area right here in today's John Kennedy neighborhood had some. So what photos were here? Photos like this. Every photo I'm showing you here today comes from the Metropolitan Library's Special Collections Archives. If it's not from there, it is cited, but these are our photos that are very interesting. So does anybody know what this strip was, what we're looking at here? Well, a lot of people don't.
Do you ever hear anyone talk about the East Side Theater?
No.
You never hear them mention. People have forgotten that theater, but people have forgotten that theater even existed. And that was the theater for our area, for the fairgrounds area.
That
right. Was where, because our parents would let us walk to that.
That's right.
It was close enough that we could just.
That's right. That's right.
You know, with a group of kids, you would just walk to the theater.
So this is the East Side Theater that was built in the early 1950s, and this is the primary theater for the Fairgrounds neighborhood, the most east of all the theaters. Can anybody name the other African-American theaters in Oklahoma City? The Jewel and the Aldridge, which was in Deep Deuce. So the East Side served here. Deep Deuce had quite a reputation. This is not an area that children could go really anytime. And Fourth was a huge thoroughfare. So having children walk up and down Fourth may not have been possible too. But this served as a community center, commercial strip, and theater for the Fairgrounds neighborhood, named for the old fairgrounds that existed around Fourth and Eastern until they moved to the west side. So, So here is a photo from OHS's collections showing the East Side Theater in its glory. And this was one of many things that were fed into our modeling system. So we looked for things that showed it from every angle, whether it was taken down, in disrepair, or brand new, like this photo. And in the next slide, you'll see a short rendering of what the video of the model looks like. We'll also zoom in and you'll catch a glimpse of what this area looks like today from a bird's eye view. So trying to really put it right there where this photo was taken. This photo is from 52, and the model is built around 55, and we'll talk about why. So to talk about what happened at East Side Theater, you have to talk about urban renewal in Oklahoma City. Sometimes it's called the pay plan. The pay plan is just one small part of what happened in Oklahoma City, and almost exclusively that is a downtown concept. Many other things were forced into the idea of urban renewal, even if they weren't the initial projects supported by pay and city leaders in the early 60s, lasting into the 80s. So I just love this. City's too big, says urban planner. Tell me about it. So when people think of urban renewal in Oklahoma City, I think the majority of people will talk about this. So here's the construction of the Myriad that really showcases how many city blocks were taken down for that and what those city blocks may have looked like before urban renewal. They talk about losing great historic legacies. This is the Huckins Hotel, where many important things happened in Oklahoma City, even before statehood. Or what we took down to build the Myriad Gardens. There's the Colcord building, which does remain. I don't think anything else in this picture still stands. There's a whole other side of urban renewal, and that is what happened in Oklahoma City's northeast side. So the expansion of the Health Sciences Center and all the homes that were taken away. Very few homes were taken away in downtown Oklahoma City, though people did lose businesses. Here's the destruction of the Dunbar Library, which is 613 Northeast 4th. This was the decision of urban renewal to buy this building from the city and demolish it without a plan for another Northeast Oklahoma City library. Libraries had been integrated by then, but no services existed on the northeast side of town for several years before this, and a permanent building wasn't established for a long time. Today's Ralph Ellison Library. We see homes being moved to create space or for rejuvenation of neighborhoods. We see homes being destroyed all across town. And we see a lot of this. People that are not stakeholders or part of the community making decisions about the community that did not pan out in ways that were predicted. So our goal in this project was to create a navigable world that shows the community, the businesses, and the liveliness of the area, and discuss why it was created in the first place, and then what happened over 30 years so it does not exist anymore. Why did that happen? How did we build this? With primary sources. So we chose 1955 because that's the last year of the Sanborns and the only Sanborn that shows this theater on it. Photos from both our collections and others, tons of newspaper clippings and parts from the city directory, things published in that time, and then many, many things from our ongoing oral history projects. We did this for about $30,000, if that gives you a clue of how expensive these projects are and what we're looking at. This gets cheaper all the time. So we started in 2021. Maybe we'd be farther if we started today, and we can want to go forward. But if you want to make something like this, I would budget no less than $50,000 to start something like this, either because you're doing it on your own, you're freelancing people, or somebody on staff can do it. They will be an expensive staff member to start out with. So here's the 55 Sanborn, and this is one of my favorite photos of Northeast Oklahoma City that shows this area. So again, we're looking northwest. I've tried to have some landmarks that might help you understand what it looks like and where we are. This kind of density does not exist on the northeast side of Oklahoma City anymore, and those decisions have lasting impact for this community and why the East Side Theater does not exist anymore. Here's a closer version, and you can really see, here's these buildings, and here they are right here, in a way that already is putting two primary sources together that can just really blow your mind, and that's the whole point of the model. You can also see its proximity to Dunbar Elementary. This does still stand. So this is 6th, this is the Katy line, going diagonal across Northeast Oklahoma City. This is 7th, and this is 8th, which is a multi-lane road. You can see how integrated into the neighborhood East Side Theater was. So since we chose 55, here's the city directory page that I've typed up here. So one side is completely residential. You can see this here, completely residential. And the other side is all commercial. Using these, this is what helped us find more things in other primary sources, the addresses, the names of places to look for. Tons of things out of the newspapers. These are all from things on the block that are not East Side Theater. In the model, we built a whole jukebox based on this ad for Melody Record Shop. Listen to all of these songs from 1954. And here are clippings about the East Side Theater itself, or people that worked at East Side Theater. People have asked, what kind of movies did it show? Did it show African-American produced movies, directed, starred movies? And for the most part, no. It showed the same movies that were being shown everywhere else in the city. Anybody wants to see any of this? Okay, so now I'm going to take a break and listen to this. Everything we know about this, we learned in the oral histories. And I've tried to space them out on why it began, how people used it, what happened during urban renewal, and the lingering effects of urban renewal. So you can just sit back and listen. This will be about 8 minutes of oral history.
He had the idea of blacks, Negroes, doing things for themselves in a segregated society. He never dreamt that this would evolve and that segregation would be abolished. So he felt much like Booker T. Washington that blacks should do for themselves, have their own, develop their own, educate their own. And so he built a home on 7th and Bath, which was down from where you went to school.
Yes, yes.
And then he developed a business section on Bath Street,
on Bath, down the street from the
which
house.
included the East Side Theater.
Yes,
It included a black cleaners, a bakery, an apparel shop, a restaurant.
Yes.
And that was his dream for.
And so that development there on Bath was built by your dad.
That's correct.
And it was a business district. It
was a business district.
A little business district.
It was.
And not only to serve that neighborhood, but it was the place for people to go.
That's
I
correct.
remember that so well in the day.
That's correct.
It was the place for people to go.
Sure, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I want to show you something here that I think you just will be delighted to see. The way that I got in contact with you is I had interviewed Mr. Richardson. And you remember who Mr. Richardson was?
Mr. Richardson. Well, look at this.
He had these pictures. This one's not clear. But he had these pictures that were taken of Northeast Bath between 7th and 6th Street.
That's
and it
right.
shows a part.
That's the home place.
And there it is right there.
In the background.
There it is right there.
That's right.
And it shows that section that you just got through speaking about.
That's right.
That your father built.
That's right.
And I had asked Mr. Richardson, I said, well, how did you, because I said, I was thinking that the structure was already there. He said, no, we built the theater.
That's correct.
And I said, now how did you do it? He said, well, we hired an architect.
That's right.
And then we got the materials.
That's right.
And we built it.
That's right. And I carried masonry during the summer.
Did?
I carried cement blocks, and I got paid by my dad by the hour.
Excellent.
Something like 10 or 15 cents an hour.
Yes.
And so I had a hand in actually building that structure.
Building that. Oh, that is so wonderful. I tell you, I'd give my eye tooth to maybe an arm even or a leg for some portion of that structure to still be standing.
That came along, and integration came along. Integration came along, and that spelled the beginning of the end for black-owned businesses.
Down on Bath, on 7th and Bath.
On 7th and Bath.
It was almost what you would call a little strip shopping center.
Yes.
The East Side Theater was located on Bath. And we used to go to see the movies on Saturday afternoon.
Right.
And Mrs. Cunningham ran that theater, and she used to burn me up because I was tall for my age. And she would charge me an adult fare, and I was the youngest one in the bunch. You know, and I think
that was one of their ploys.
Yeah.
For tall children, they always overcharged the tall children.
I
remember
me
that.
At little fair, and I was the youngest one in the bunch. She never would believe it, you know.
You
my
were
age.
speaking of. You spoke earlier of Little John. One of those Little Johns used to be one of the counter guys. At East Side Theater.
Right.
And that guy would haggle me every Saturday. He would make me pay 25 cents instead of 15 or whatever it was.
That's right.
because I was mature.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's the way you were treated.
Yeah, he would just give me a hassle every Saturday, and he knew better.
And there was another beauty shop right there, and Nellie Terry was the name of the
Yes, I remember that. That's correct.
She had a beauty shop right there.
Nellie,
And then
you remember the name of it?
No, I don't remember the name.
But
of
I remember
it,
that she had that shop.
She
yes.
had the shop.
What about Bill's Cleaners?
Yeah, I was going to say there was a cleaners there. There was a donut shop there too.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, the Brannon family, Alberta Brannon, that ended up with the tea room, Alberta's tea room.
Alberta's Tea Room.
They started out with the donut shop, and it was right down there.
Okay.
If I'm correct about it, and I think I am. And let's see, what else was down there?
There was something like there was the record shop.
Yes,
I
there
think
was.
I think that was the original place that Herbie's
Probably
was.
so.
But that was, the record shop was also down in that little strip.
Right.
That was where we bought our 45s. And I remember in that record shop, this cutout, when they used to have that, they would have cardboard life-size cutouts of the artists.
Okay.
And I remember the one of Della Reese.
Oh, okay.
Looking
yeah.
like a movie star.
Right.
Looking like a beautiful chocolate movie star.
That's right.
You still see that on the northwest side. You see that whole northwest area that's now a historical preservation area that they chose not to destroy. But when you come down to the old fairgrounds, you can't even recognize the streets. The names of the streets have been changed. It just drives a stake through my heart. The businesses, all those businesses that I mentioned, are no longer there. I'm not going to say, well, it's just a shack there. They are not there. They don't exist. It's as if they never were. And to me, for your history to be raised, R-A-Z-E-D, like that, it's like raising you. It's like you didn't exist.
We used to call it urban removal. That's mostly what they did. They removed a lot of people that own properties in that area, which is sort of removing them from the area.
Okay, so a lot of these interviews are by Sandra Richards, who grew up in the fairgrounds as an oral history project that she did 2008 to 2012-ish, collecting all of these, and I'm sure several of these people have passed, so I'm glad that we have them, and their record exists here. You hear what a business incubator this was. So they started this, and then it went on to this business over and over again. The importance of this area. Okay. Oh my gosh. Awful. Okay. Cacophony of voices there. Okay. And also the last piece of primary sources are all these photos, which we feel so lucky to have. So this is in this. These are later than 1955, but we use some of them just for the dimensions of the space and how it was used. Maybe this wasn't always a domino parlor, but it always was an area for basically men's recreation of some kinds. We had a domino pool bar area. Photos of the school that provide sort of context. You can see like the Katy line going this way. This is Dunbar School. This is a little more north on Bath. And then lucky to have some photos inside Bill's Cleaners. And these are used in the model in a variety of ways. So just the detail we would have never been able to get without the density of photos. Okay, so those are the primary sources. Now, what did we do with them? So the first thing we did was hire an architect that does modeling. Caitlin Whitley is local to Oklahoma City, has a master's degree in historic preservation. So that allowed her to really know how to do this kind of modeling and what to expect and what these things will look like. So if anybody cares, this was modeled in Revit, and then the images are produced in Enscape. So there's the theater. We had our model out much farther than the model exists right now. One, because we might expand the model, but it also kind of shows that density. And I think this looks a lot like the New York Times version of things, to just have these sort of blank buildings and only providing detail when you really know it and have the information, and then this sort of Katy line back here looking up. So very cool stuff. They talk about the Sanfords. Actually, this is the house of the Sanfords. We don't have a lot of pictures of it, but it was really cool and interesting. So the guy who designed this and owned this block lived right here. Okay, all of those images and the 3D models from the architect were sent to Drone's Eye View, which is a company owned by my colleague, Bobby Reed, who is a librarian and now is computer science faculty at Oklahoma City University. And how this was built into a 3D model. So the software is called Unity. You may know this. It is a gaming software. And by gaming, I just mean an interactive thing that like you go into a world and you exist there. So while I wouldn't call this a game, it is sort of gamified in a way that we all want to appeal to a younger generation to do. So Unity is what kind of holds together and is made to hold things like the architectural block, all the building frames, the skins, the static items, and then all the features that are in there. Bobby described it as it holds all the logic. Things aren't like made like this. Most games are like huge commercial endeavors. Unity is the engine for any sort of indie gaming that's going on. And a lot of this was kind of built by hand. And so the hardest part of doing any of this, which I didn't know when I came up with this idea, is the actual ambulation. Moving through these models, which are static, to look at them at different viewpoints. Is a ton of work, and to not go at a speed that makes you scared, jerky, nauseous. That is so much of the work in VR, is making it usable to people. So this was the part I don't really know much about. But here's what early things look like. They all kind of function with hands. So what do we look at like at that? Very early in the model. And then here's sort of the back end of making the pool hall area. Looks like this, and this is all Greek to me, but it has some payoff. So here's the issues that I ran into it. I have $30,000. And that doesn't go very far in what we're working with. So why is it not done? Something I would do differently if you want to do something like this, compiling the primary sources is a huge undertaking, but also the content of what we wanted to say. So I'm a librarian and I'm not in museum studies. And I really see a difference between those two worlds, and that creating the content that points to a point of view without overarching bias or letting people come to their own conclusions, that's a little outside of my skill set and something I'd like to grow in, but I'd like to work with people that are doing work like that. Hoping to begin some partnerships with teachers in the Oklahoma City public school system working on Oklahoma history, because we'd like that to be a part of it. And they know how to create content and lesson plans for teenagers that are taking Oklahoma City history, either the middle years or the high school level. We are now developing a web version of it. So what I have to show you on the screen is really just like a recording of being in the headset. It's not great, and it just doesn't have sort of the...
It's now 4:30 p.m. Facility will close in 15 minutes.
It doesn't have like the veracity that you're getting there. It looks much flatter. And so if you wanted to do something like this and have a web component, I'd build it at the same time. So you could show people. People always want to say, like, can I see the model? And I'm like, ooh, you got to have the headset. So I would change it that way. It has to be an organizational priority. We had a CEO when we started this who was talking about the model nonstop, in fact, billing it in things that it was not possible to do. He loved the project to death. And then when you had no CEO, now I have a different CEO. And how is this going to be on their like radar that you have this expensive, weird thing going on that needs a lot of support without, how do they know? And then I'd love to show this. We'll just get out of the PowerPoint. I'll bring up all the links if you want to what Arkansas has done with Rising Above. So this showcases a Japanese internment camp during World War II in Arkansas. And I can just go through and tell you who worked on it. Arkansas State University, the University of Arkansas, Arkansas Libraries, the Fayetteville Public Library System, the State Library of Arkansas. So many different organizations were pulling on this at one time. And I think that's sort of the lesson that has to go, because you're providing so many skill sets. No worries. So our long-term goal with this is to have something like this in the Oklahoma City public schools to expand Oklahoma City lessons. I know during the time I made these slides, these have all changed. I don't know what the new social studies standards are, but hopefully they have something like this. I want to focus on things that are real for people. I have tried to work with so many people that grew up in Northeast Oklahoma City that are my age and younger that had never heard of this development. So it is important to share this kind of history with people that explains why Northeast Oklahoma City looks the way it does, explains why there are not strips like Paseo or Plaza that exist in parts of Northwest Oklahoma City that are ripe for redevelopment. It doesn't exist there. And the idea that many people say is, well, maybe it just never did. And that's not true. So we hope to get it in here by working with Oklahoma City Public Schools teachers to create the curriculum. We'd like to put that curriculum also on our website so that anybody can use this once we have the web version up to build it there. And then we have a bunch of other primary sources, which are the original plans for urban renewal were published by the city in the 60s and 70s that we would like to scan and have available just in there. You can click through the catalog records. So integrating all of our sources to get all the primary sources available for people and make this have like a lesson plan and curriculum around it is the goal. So the next steps, making the content. What do we want to say about urban renewal, and how do we want to say it in a way that pushes a narrative without implicit bias? And create, if there are more primary sources, we always want more things to help us understand the model and make it richer. Getting that web model up in fall of 2025 is a goal. And then the one thing I think AI is really good at and should keep doing is coding. Coding's not a natural human practice. And I think it's great if AI does it, and it's getting really good. And what people call it now in this world is vibe coding. And it's much more like WYSIWYG, sort of like, will you make this brick redder? Will you make this stop sign bigger? And it can really translate the way a human would say it to changing the code on it, and will make this product go much faster than it had. I would also love to collaborate more on this, seeing the number of people and professionals that went into making the thing I just referenced from Arkansas about the internment camp. I can't have enough skill sets, perspective, and audiences for that. I don't know who else we could show this to and who else it would be meaningful to. So if you have ideas or that's part of your work or you have a colleague that does that, please get in touch with me, because I would like this to be as useful to everybody. If there's more stories, if there's more places, that we should expand it to a larger area just right there. If we want to have more places in Oklahoma City, or if we want to go to different times that you can go between 1955 to today to earlier. I don't know. There's lots of places we could go. It's a model. It doesn't have to exist. Okay. So it's much better if you're in the headset. So if you're interested in doing something like that, let's do it. I have 2 of them. And if you have questions, I'd love to try to answer them.
Questions for Judie?
Is that Blender? Can you go back to the slide?
Oh my
you saw,
gosh.
you didn't know what it was. I'm just curious
Maybe.
what software that was.
Okay, hold on.
That's okay.
This one?
Thank you.
Right here?
That one, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I had an answer. I wish I had an answer. Was that Blender? Okay, great.
Good eyes.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I wish Bobby could have been here, who did all the work. He's actually at a childhood friend's wedding today. But he's in town and can answer questions about it if you have some on that side of it.
Question.
Okay, so there's so much that I love about this project being a former historic preservationist. I love the aerial photos of Dunbar Elementary, which is a successful tax credit project, and working on that project and how this like helps me think about the bigger picture, because sometimes with preservation we get so focused on one building and you forget about things. But I guess I have a bigger question, and it's okay if you don't have the answer yet, but are you seeing anything with the work that you're doing? We really don't have a very good history of like that's kind of in one place about the history of urban renewal in Oklahoma City. And as you mentioned, a lot of it is focused on downtown, especially like Sam Anderson's book. So are you seeing it?
I would like to say white voices are focused on downtown.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And so are you seeing anything with the research that you're doing that is changing or maybe complicating or adding some things to how we need to tell the histories of urban renewal? And then I guess on top of that, do you see any applications for what you're doing to being able to tell histories of urban renewal, not just in Oklahoma City, but Tulsa or elsewhere?
Everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think to the second question, I'm biased, but I think anything that ever happened in America happened in the dramatic way in Oklahoma. And our stories are some of the most interesting. And so if you think about what happened in urban renewal nationwide, Oklahoma City does have the reputation of going too far, pulling down too much, making it unrecognizable. So I think the Oklahoma City story is probably the most interesting compared to a lot of other places if you want to talk about the destruction of urban renewal and not really the quote unquote successes of urban renewal. That might be a very interesting story to tell somewhere else. I don't know where that is, but I hope that it can be a model to talking about urban renewal all over. I think we do need more resources about what happened in Oklahoma City, both downtown and on the northeast side, because that is a it's like a gossipy history. It's like everybody knows about it, everybody's talking about it, but if you want to put your finger on like, here's the authoritative text on it, that doesn't exist yet. So I think I'm hearing more stories all the time. I'm seeing more places, more things are being uncovered that are interesting to pushing that story forward. We could have talked about what happened in urban renewal in Oklahoma City, and the model would have been easy to make because we just have 100,000 photos of downtown Oklahoma City at every era and all of this destruction. These sets of photos that we have, I have photos of downtown Oklahoma City destruction too. I think it's that this story is being not untold. And if you hear about people trying to do development on the northeast side of Oklahoma City, they cannot get the funding. There is an ongoing problem of systemic racism in Oklahoma City. And if we can talk about how we got there at any level, I hope that it makes change to inspire business practices, lending practices, and support for Northeast Oklahoma City. When you hear about the business incubation that happened on Bath Avenue and this trouble at people that are trying to do development on 23rd and cannot get financing for similar projects that are greenlit in the northwest side of Oklahoma City, how are we going to address that problem? How are we going to bring up this part of town? How are people going to be able to act on their dreams and fulfill the businesses that other people are greenlit for? I think this is one path toward something like that happening. I think it's just part of a wide legacy of Oklahoma City and not exclusively talking about Deep Deuce, which is not like a full picture of Oklahoma City at any point in time for any group, I think, is just expanding what we know about. Yeah. Yeah, please.
Oh. When I used to volunteer at the Foster Center, we would walk the kids from there to the Dunbar School, and there was just all these people would be out gardening, and they would, this would have been in the 70s, and they were such wonderful mentors for those kids. And you just saw those social connections being built and how strong they were. I'm interested in what you were saying, because I hadn't even thought about politics until you raised this. And, you know, I had been taught that you had de jure segregation and de facto segregation. And then Ta-Nehisi Coates and people like that come in and says, no, this was actually de jure segregation. And the fact of the matter is, when Oklahoma City was doing it, we were one of the most extremely corrupt oligarchies in America. And it was just a handful of people led by Gaylord and Draper, who were, certainly committing felonies all the time when they created this stuff. And I'm trying to remember exactly on this. Later on, once they started investigating, the legislature subpoenaed the trust for their data on that, and they just refused to give it to the legislature.
Even expanding outside of like what's happening in urban renewal, Black land, Black-owned homes, and Black businesses are taken all the time. Black homes were taken to make this building here today. Black homes will be taken for the expansion of I-35 and the Edwards community. The more I think you can talk about problems in urban development, whether it's called urban renewal or any sort of for progress, who benefits and who loses on that is a conversation that needs to be out in the open.
Oh, I came in late. But how if you wanted to do a person that wanted to do a research on it, how would they go about doing their own personal research? How would you recommend them to?
For like a particular piece of land, or to know just more about what was happening?
Just learn more about what was happening. Sure. And learn more about the urban renewal and all of that.
So
what would be the first thing that they, some of the pointers you would give someone?
Oh, this is a great question. So this library here is full of resources. My library in downtown Oklahoma City, everything I know, I learned in the papers. You can read what's going on. There are primary sources that we have saved about what was the plan. I'm going to go back to this slide of this. There are whatever map they're looking at here, whatever they're creating, there's a 50-page, what we're going to do, when we're going to move what buildings, how have we assessed this building? Is this building worth saving? Should we move it? Should we tear it down? How much are we going to pay for it? Who lives there now? That's all records that people created. So it is not that these things don't exist, it's that nobody has unearthed them and written the story. So going into a research library about Oklahoma City history will grant you access to Black Dispatch, Daily Oklahoman, Oklahoma Times, and other papers that are talking about this, and then what people were voting on when the urban renewal was a vote. You know, it wasn't just a decision. It was a series of things that we decided to do by the majority. So looking at the public record there, you can see the transfer of property records. That's like a county record. And any, I would be happy to work people through the research, my research methods all the time. Come and see me at the library. I can talk you through all the things I do. I don't have any special skills. I don't have my own personal supply of things. They're things that we've pulled together to make this research. You can go in any direction. Nobody put this together for me. It's a path that I chose, and there's a million different stories to be told in Oklahoma City. Yeah, come to the library, come to this research library. People will be happy to help facilitate, support research of any kind. Yeah, but we love it the most, so we're happy to help.
Well, I have a question for you,
Please.
if that's okay.
Yeah.
So in your presentation, I saw Unity played a part in this. I'm a nerd. When I think Unity, I think video game creation. You've mentioned when you create a video game, that's something fictional. So you can just kind of create it how you want to. You don't have to be worried about historical accuracy. With something like this, obviously, you're recreating something that we no longer have access to.
Yeah.
And so historical accuracy, I would imagine, must involve a blend.
Sorry. There you go.
It's got to involve a blend, right, of historical record along with interpretation. So I'm wondering for you what that blend looks like. Is it heavily skewed towards historical record? Is there a little bit of interpretation? What's that look like as you're creating this?
I think we're doing the best we can all the time,
Yeah.
right? So the software is also hard to manage and expensive, and it's been a part of everybody's job, but nobody's full-time job to be working on this. I don't have a full-time web developer, and I think that's a possibility if a bunch of groups want to get together and write something, maybe when we're writing and receiving grants again as a humanities disciplines, but it is hard to get all these little details, and we'll just see little things. So maybe here, here's my pointer, we have some real fine details here, but you'll see things in the model where we just don't have a picture of that storefront. And we have to make the decision, do we make a guess? And then do we put somebody in the model? Sandra Richards is alive. We can put her in the model or the web version, and it will feel so inauthentic and so flat because we don't capture those elements. So is it better to have a blank screen there? So I think we're making those decisions all the time based on, can we make a guess? Do we have a couple of photos? Do we have one and we can guess the color? That's mutable. We can go back and take the color out or change it if somebody knew. But there's some things that are so much work to code and make. Maybe we don't want to make mistakes and leave it blank because we can always update this. I'd rather not do it and update it when we had information than try to scale something back.
The virtual floor now.
Yeah.
History is not stagnant.
Yeah.
Details always come into light as you learn more details with a few more clicks of the mouse, few more holds of appropriate.
Yeah.
Then your model can be updated.
Yeah, and I don't have color photographs, right? So I'm always desperate to see, what did it really look like? We can make some best guesses. We have, similar bricks. What color does that look like when we do have a color photograph of something? But being able to update it is hugely different, and we can just publish it instantly. It's not like a textbook. We're hoping to get a new one in 3 years. We could kind of push that out immediately.
Well, I believe we are out of time for this session, but I think, Judy, correct me if I'm wrong, but you do have the VR sample.
You can come and jump in it. And
I've been lucky enough to be able to look at it. It is very cool. If you have a minute to stay behind and you would like to take a peek at her work and what we've talked about today, I think she'd be happy to show you. Otherwise, thank you for being here, and we look forward to seeing you at next year's symposium.